one largely ignored discussion is how are we treating young boys that are growing up in the classroom?
Not that great. Not
Yeah.
not that great. And just to insert a little personal anecdote, and I was talking a little bit about my younger brother last week, but I think that in public school, he goes to private Catholic school now, but in public school, he had multiple experiences with female counselors and female teachers, and everybody knows that in public school, especially this is back when he was in elementary school, middle school, the vast majority of these teachers are women. They're female, and if you look back and go look at the home, like half of American kids are born into a single parent household or they don't cohabitate with their father. So they just
Wow.
have a lack of masculine influences. But to go
Mhm.
back to my brother, he would get in trouble for, roughhousing at recess, being too good at sports, keeping the ball away from his friends. And
Right.
these are just masculine traits. I think that boys should be allowed to roughhouse and to play ball
Mhm.
and to get a little rowdy at recess and not be labeled as bullies, not be labeled as like they have an attention deficit disorder. That's another thing that we can talk about. There are so many things that we negatively assign
Mhm.
to masculine traits and traits commonly exhibited in male children. It's really actually sad.
Right, right. And I think this does have a higher occurrence in public schools
Mm,
because in public schools they want all children to behave and learn the exact same way.
yeah.
And the way they want children to learn is a way that kind of goes against the very nature of many boys. Many boys are very rambunctious. Um, and there isn't necessarily an outlet for them. And you talked about your brother. My brother has a very similar story as well. I mean, I remember being a kid, it was me, my brother, and my little sister. My little sister and I were making amazing grades in schools, right? Like we were teachers' pets. We made straight A's. We were tested for gifted classes at a very early age. And my brother, on the other hand, was always getting in trouble at schools. And his school system essentially forced my parents to go get him tested for ADHD. And I really want to talk about that particular part of public education. I don't know if you know this, but boys are diagnosed as having ADHD twice as much as girls are. And these are at
Really?
very, very young ages. Um,
Twice?
Twice as
That
much.
is crazy.
Yes. And this is according to the CDC. I'm not getting this off of some
Yeah, they're
random
probably proud of that statistic.
website.
They're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
Yeah. About 13% of boys are diagnosed with ADHD compared to 6% of girls. And the amount of these children that are taking medication, these are children, right? About 18% of kids who are diagnosed with ADHD that are ages 2 to 5, 18% are
2
prescribed
to
medication.
5.
Yes.
What type of 2-year-old needs to be on an attention medication?
I know.
That
I
reminds me of
know.
that. You ever see Family Guy? There's an episode where they put Stewie on ADHD medication. That just reminded me of that.
I loved Family Guy growing up. I cannot lie to you. I'm like kind of ashamed of it now, but yeah,
Don't be ashamed.
my
But
brother and I used to watch so much Family
can
Guy.
I just say how I'm not surprised at all that the problem all stems back to public education, which all stems back
Yeah.
to the government. Like,
Right.
this is the end goal.
Absolutely. And there have been all these sorts of initiatives in public education, K through 12, to really focus on making sure girls are successful later on in life. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's
Mhm.
not bad to say, hey, we need to make sure we're setting up girls for success to go into whatever field they want and not just presuming that they want to be a teacher or some kind of more nurturing career. But where do boys get left in that? You know?
There
Like
is a
where does
discrepancy,
that
yeah.
leave boys? A lot of times their behaviors are considered disruptive, aggressive, and we've seen efforts to socialize boys into becoming more like girls in early education. And you made a really excellent point earlier that that a lot of these kids, one, don't grow up with men in their households, and then two, the majority of their teachers are women. So at school and at home, yes, a feminine, maternal, nurturing influence is amazing, but they're not necessarily going to be able to give young boys everything they need, right? So a lot of young men are lacking a male role model who understands what it's like and can give these young boys pathways to expressing characteristics that are very innate to who they are. Um, so Jordan Peterson has written a lot about this,
Mm-hmm.
especially in 12 Rules for Life. And he quotes this guy, this American psychologist, L.D. Iran, um, who wrote in the Prescription for Reduction of Aggression that boys should be socialized the way girls have been traditionally socialized. And they should be encouraged to develop socially positive qualities such as tenderness, sensitivity to feelings, nurturance, cooperative, and aesthetic appreciation.
Can I just say, I mean, isn't a common saying that men are visual creatures? I mean, clearly they have aesthetic appreciation.
Mhm.
Are men not creative? So many artists are like some of the
Yeah.
greatest artists in the world are men. Like I don't understand
Right.
any of those points to be honest, but especially that
Yeah.
one. But to go back to being sensitive and tender and nurturing, I mean, strong masculine fathers, in my experience, are
Mhm.
all of those things. They're just
Yes.
not in the same way as a mother is, and that's
Right.
okay.
hmm Yeah. And I think there are a lot of characteristics that are more innate to boys, like aggression, for example. There's all this talk about, you know, boys become these really aggressive men and how can we stop that? And a lot of people prescribe what LD Iran is saying, which is okay, we need to socialize them more like girls. But really, we need to show young men and young boys that there is a positive way to act out these things that are innate to them. And then there are negative ways to do that.
Mhm.
So I think what we're doing is repressing a lot of things that make boys boys and make men men,
Yeah.
and we're not showing them positive ways to express that. We're just telling them that it's bad. And again, back to our original point, when we tell boys growing up that they are bad, which is a lot of what we're doing, unfortunately, when we tell them that they're bad, they're aggressive, they're the ones who hurt us, they're responsible for all the wars, they're benefiting from the patriarchy, that none of their success is their own, and it's all because they've just been set up for success by a system that benefits them at the expense of others. We create really confused men,
Mhm.
you
And you
know?
can't be these same people who are saying, "Let's socialize boys like girls." They're probably the same people who are like, "Oh my goodness, is chivalry dead? Why isn't my man opening the door for me? Why isn't he paying for dates?" Well, cuz you
Yeah.
socialized him like a girl. I
Yes.
mean, let's be real.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of these innate male desires are shamed a lot in our culture. Another person who reacted to this tweet I had posted said this: a lot of innate male desires are shamed when what we should be shaming is harmful expressions of them and encouraging healthy ones. Things like ambition, competitiveness, horseplay. All of these have a proper time and place. Now, what happens when we tell boys to repress themselves? What happens when we do that? What happens when all of these young men are growing up without fathers and male role models? Well, they become teenagers.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, when you become a teenager, you hit puberty. You start looking at women differently. You're experiencing like an onslaught of this is what the world is actually like. And I have to make a way for myself. Eventually, I want to have a family and provide for them and have a career, but I don't have someone in front of me that I can look to.